This episode is sponsored by Cash App. When your personal finances connect you to your funds and the things that matter, that's money, and that's Cash App. You know what else is money? Harnessing the power of wind in the kitchen, getting to have chocolate for breakfast, and tiny offset spatulas. That's money, and that's Cash App. Download Cash App from the App Store or Google Play Store to add your cash tag to the 80 million and counting.
Could we interest you in some chocolate?
Chocolate? Did you say chocolate?
Yes, sir. With or without nuts.
Chocolate? Chocolate! 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 Chocolate!
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Binging with Babish, where last week we hit 10 million subscribers. So on Monday, we tried to come up with the craziest way we could imagine to celebrate, and I knew immediately we had to take a crack at chocolate from SpongeBob. And, oh, how do you like that? There's some chocolate right here. Oh, never mind, easiest episode ever. Anyway, thank you guys for subscribing, and I hope you have a great day, and obviously I'm just joking. Of course, we are going to make some chocolate entirely from scratch, which is going to require some tools and ingredients that you can't really get at your local grocery. So if you guys will follow me on a quick field trip, we'll run out and get the stuff that we need to make our own chocolate, which might take us a bit farther afield than usual.
Chocolate? Chocolate! Chocolate!
Alright, that was dramatic, but we dragged the fancy camera all the way here, and by God, we're going to use it. We've got one day in Ecuador, and we're spending it here, at Hacienda Cacao Mango, a cacao farm nestled in the mountains about an hour away from the city of Guayaquil. Our guide Jamil, who's also an owner, provided us with a tour of the farm, and showed me how cacao is grown and harvested there. The cacao fruit grows from these little flowers on the trees, and the 0.01% of them that get pollinated grow to this size in about 4 months. The ripeness of the fruit is judged by its color, which Jamil explained, and then let me try harvesting one for myself.
As you can see, there is just purple cacaos, but we need to find red cacao right now.
Red.
So when the cacao is ripe, it's ready for collect or harvest. So if you see a red cacao, please tell me. Because it's a nice. Yeah? Great. Now say, you can do it. Do it and twist in one direction, okay?
Oh, he's a twisty. He's a twisty one.
Oh, great.
All right.
Hit the pot in this part. Just not too hard, not too light. Just, okay. Just 1, 2, 3. Yeah, almost ready. Yep, it's done. Yeah, great. Here we go. Pull it.
Oh, man.
Fresh cacao. The fresh cacao, the idea to try is just put in your mouth.
Don't bite it, huh? Don't bite it. Just put on your mouth.
Suck it and don't bite.
When you finish, spit it out.
Oh, it's delicious.
Look, it's awesome. Yeah.
Oh, man. It's delicious. Here, you gotta try this.
Very tasty. Very
Open wide. Once I got my fill of fresh cacao fruit, it was time to check out the next stage in the chocolate making process, fermentation, which we skipped over because Jamil didn't have any fermenting at the time.
Just get some stock footage. I mean, we're gonna go see the fermenters.
After 6 to 10 days, the beans turn a reddish brown and then are dried, after which they're ready to be turned into chocolate. This is what I'll be using to make modern chocolate at home, but Jamil wanted to show me the traditional way that chocolate was prepared. The fermented beans are roasted in a clay pot for a few minutes until you hear popcorn sounds, which is the sound of the husks cracking, indicating that they're ready to peel.
So the idea in the roasting process is try to peel the shell.
With the peels removed, we then run the beans through a manual grinder and shake the ground beans lovingly. Then we're back on the stove where we warm some water, to which we're going to add our 100% cacao, raw sugarcane, some chili pepper, lemongrass, and clove leaf. Once everything is brought to a simmer, it's ready to enjoy.
Ah, perfect.
Arriba, abajo, centro.
But now it's time to head back to New York and make our bar of chocolate. So we thanked our gracious hosts and were on our way with fresh cacao fruit in tow, only to leave it at the hotel after realizing we wouldn't make it through customs. So I'm going to use these backup beans that I bought online. They might not be exactly the same, but for all intents and purposes, they're right where we left off at the farm. So we're going to start by roasting these guys, spreading them out evenly in a single layer on 2 rim baking sheets, roasting in a 250° Fahrenheit oven for 25 to 45 minutes, shaking and rotating halfway through. Shorter roasting times will apparently yield a fruitier chocolate, and longer roasting times yielding a nuttier chocolate. So we went for about 30 minutes to strike a good balance between fruity and nutty. Let these guys cool completely, and then it's time to peel, in a process known as winnowing. Now, not all cacao beans are as easy to peel as the ones we saw out in Ecuador. The shells were holding on for dear life, and the beans were a little bit more brittle, so before I could get the skins off, they were breaking down into nibs, which I then had to separate by hand, so eventually I turned, as I so often do, to a hammer, resigning myself to hand sorting through a kilo of nibs and shells, which I was determined to do for about 5 minutes. Luckily, we came across a technique that involves making wind in the kitchen, starting off by thoroughly smashing up a handful of beans, making sure that no shells were sticking to their nib counterparts, and then slowly, carefully sprinkling them down in front of a running fan. Thanks to the husk's lighter weight and less aerodynamic form factor, should get pushed out of the nib stream as they cascade down into a bowl. Now, this is obviously not a perfect system. It makes a dusty, husky mess of anything that's in front of the fan, and definitely does not catch all the skins, requiring at least a dozen passes to get rid of what looked like about 90% of the husks. The cool part is that it was surprisingly effective at not sacrificing nibs, as the pile accumulating to the left of the fan contained virtually only husks. That being said, some manual removal was definitely necessary, which Kendall and Nico were very kind to help me with. Otherwise, it would have taken me much longer than an hour and a half to sort through this kilo of nibs. But there you have it, the building blocks of chocolate, which must now be crushed into a liquid called chocolate liquor. No, not chocolate liqueur, which is alcoholic, while chocolate liquor is an ultra-smooth paste of cocoa solids and cocoa butter. Before we break out the heavy stuff, we're going to preemptively process the nibs in batches for about 1 minute each, until they're just starting to release their fats and take on a consistency like wet sand. Rinse and repeat with the remaining nibs, and then it's time to bust out the concher. This home appliance version of the traditional process, where 2 rough stone wheels are kept immobile in the center of a rotating drum, the bottom of which is made from the same stone. This has the effect of both grinding and warming the chocolate, deepening the flavors and making it impossibly smooth. We're going to start by gently warming the drum of the concher itself, using a torch on a very low setting and a laser thermometer. Then we're going to add the pre-ground nibs and set this thing to maximum grind, which is its only setting, just like me. Oh, wait, no, that didn't work. Both the joke and the concher, which, due to the still rough texture of the chocolate, obstinately refused to turn, just like me. That worked even less. Now, you're supposed to let this grind for an hour on its own before adding any cocoa butter, but we decided to cheat, hoping that the fat would help get things going, and it did. Adding the chocolate and cocoa butter in small batches, the concher finally whirred to life. Now, for a 65% dark chocolate, that meant obviously 65% cacao at 750 grams, 5% cocoa butter, 55 grams, and the rest is sugar, which we'll add after these guys get to know each other for about 4 hours. Now, I can't recommend what I'm doing for safety and legal reasons, but we're taping down the 45-minute maximum timer on this concher and leaving this device to its own devices for 4 hours before adding any sugar. Now, I had never used one of these things before, so I was surprised to find that after the allotted time, it had rendered our cocoa solids and fats into an incredibly smooth liquid. It already looked and tasted like 100% baking chocolate, but we want to eat this stuff, so we gotta add sugar. 30% of the total weight is about 350 grams of superfine sugar, added slowly through the sugar feed hole thing. Now, the chocolate's texture might have seemed very nearly done, but this thing was only getting started, gearing up to grind for another 20 hours. Apparently, this not only makes the chocolate super smooth, but develops its flavor. The next morning, and it's not quite done yet, but I wanted to come downstairs and give it a taste. And at this point, it is untempered chocolate, which is kind of magic to see happen from its original bean state. But how's it taste? And the answer is, and I might be biased here, really, really good. It's rich and deep and not too sweet and pronouncedly fruity. Later on, I'm all dressed for work, and the chocolate has passed the 20-hour mark, and at this point it's clocking about 110 degrees Fahrenheit, a perfect place to start the tempering process. Now we want to slowly cool it off 2 ways, first by pouring it into a large stainless steel bowl where we can agitate and aerate it with great vigor. And this might seem like cheating, but we need some seed chocolate, that is, a handful of chocolate that's already been tempered so that it contains the precious crystals necessary to make our chocolate set, shiny and snappy at room temperature. So after adding 10 to 20% of the chocolate's weight in seed chocolate, we're stirring the chocolate chocolate constantly and spiritedly, especially once the chocolate starts dropping below 94 degrees Fahrenheit, as this is where crystals begin to grow. If your seed chocolate isn't fully melted, you can place it over a pot of simmering water, but just make sure not to let it exceed 94. This is a pretty long and arduous process, so it's a good idea every once in a while to do a temper test. Coating the end of a butter knife or tiny offset spatula with a thin layer of chocolate every 5 minutes, letting it sit at room temperature for another 5 minutes to see how your crystals are developing. You can see the improvement in the temper from left to right that resulted from nothing more than time and agitation. At long last, once the chocolate is tempered, it's finally time to turn it into chocolate bars. Spreading the chocolate evenly over a polycarbonate chocolate bar mold, scraping off the excess back into the bowl to flatten out the top. Don't worry, we obviously saved all the extra. And I plan on eating all of it over the next 7 days at most. And then to coax out any hidden bubbles underneath the surface of the chocolate, we're going to whack it many times as hard as we can without breaking the mold against the tabletop, before stepping aside and letting the crystals do their thing for at least 2 hours. And optionally, this is a point where you can add stuff like salt. After all, nowadays you can buy almost any dessert with extra salt sprinkled on it. 4 hours later, just to be safe, I'm finally going to unmold my bars. It looks like our temper was effective and the chocolate bars have set, so time to turn them out onto a sheet pan and take a look. And unfortunately, it looks like a little bit of moisture got into the mold before we poured in the chocolate, resulting in a slight bloom on its surface. But this is easily remedied by very carefully painting the chocolate with a torch. If you heat it above 94 degrees, it will go out of temper, so be very super careful. And there you have it, chocolate from scratch. It might not be totally bean to bar, but it's as close as we could legally get. All that's left now is some arts and crafts to make it look like the bars from SpongeBob. I'm starting with gold foil wrapped around the chocolate itself, blue foil around that, red foil stripe on top of that, yada yada yada. I got to play with a glue stick for the first time in a while. And while it might only be a cartoonish approximation of a cartoon, there you have it, chocolate from SpongeBob. Look, it even matches the reference photo on Kendall's laptop. Now I just gotta make the same face. There it is. And as we all know, no self-respecting candy bar salesman would be caught dead without one of these. What is it? It's a candy bar bag, you knucklehead. So when you're carrying your candy bars from... oh, wait a second, hold on. I forgot about the candy bar bag. In here, we should have... there we go. There's the good stuff. Thank you guys so much for helping the BCU reach 10 million subscribers. While I got you here and while we're celebrating, I'm very excited to announce the new Basics with Babish cookbook is coming out October 17th, and pre-orders just went live on Amazon. I'm really proud of this book. I've been writing it for the past year and a half, and it's more than just a cookbook. It's a celebration of mistakes, how to make them, how to brush them off, and how to learn from them. Check out the link in the video description to pre-order your copy on Amazon today. And thanks again to Cash App. That's money, that's Cash App. Download Cash App from the App Store or Google Play Store to add your cash tag to the 80 million and counting.